putting the spotlight on small businesses across America. This is Inside Business with Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish.
And good morning. You're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. How you doing this morning, Gary?
I am doing great. Already been out showing homes. Be doing it all afternoon. It's gonna be a good day.
Yeah, that's the game, isn't it? Your weekends are gone.
Yeah. Brought a mask for a couple of them.
There you go.
Your type homes, Travis.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those mine are
The
scary.
fixer-uppers.
Always scary. Well, our guest today is Doug Fitzgerald. Doug is an entrepreneur, former radio host.
Yeah.
Actually worked at a radio station that I did overnights on. I didn't know. I knew you had your company designed the logo for The Point, but I didn't know you were the morning guy there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
It was B104 before the Planet, then The Point. I believe it's what it was. Yeah. So I did the morning show at B104 and actually started out overnights.
Okay.
Werewolf Davis was the big name. So
I was Hondo overnights. Yes, that's an original name.
Oh, the
Seriously,
deep
Hondo.
dark secrets of the radio underworld.
No, I have only met one person in radio that actually used their normal name for their entire career, and it was Tom Stevens.
Yeah.
And he had been all over radio. He was Lincoln, Omaha, a couple other markets, and he was always Tom. I go, you never had a radio name? He goes, no, never had a radio name.
Well, I love when I'll walk into and I'm in a conversation with a radio show host, and everybody knows him by that name.
Right.
And then I'm talking to him by the regular name because I've known them forever. And people are like, that's not his name. Oh, yeah, sorry. It's blank.
And it's hard, because I was in radio for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And so one of the people that I just recently talked with was J. Pat Miller, he was a program director. He did mornings on B107. And now he just goes by Pat Miller. And it's such a speed bump for me. I just can't call him Pat. You know, so it's weird.
It's kind of funny.
But Doug, you're an author, you're a podcaster, but we wanted to bring you in. We wanted to talk about business. And so give everybody just a little background of your business and your business career and how you got started. And
Oh, my goodness. Stuff. Well, it's a long story, and I'll try to condense it all. But going back to radio, when I was a kid, ultimately I wanted to be in radio. I would shoot baskets in my driveway on our farm, listening in my boom box to Casey Kasem's American Top 40.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to be Casey.
Now here's the
I love it.
And so KLBN opened up in Albion, and I was 16, and my folks were very supportive. And I said, I want to do that. And they go in. So I talked to Mike Creasel, the general manager. I said, like a job. And he said, great, Doug, you're going to be on the weekends. You know what I was doing? Playing Casey Kasem.
Oh, wow.
Back then it was on records, and that kind of got my career started as far as communication and radio. And fast forward that, I was a pastor for 13 years, and then a company called Beachbody was forming, and that's how I got started in the business world. My business actually started through an infomercial. And so we ordered an infomercial called Power 90 years ago, 20 plus years ago, and started getting results with it. The funny thing is, I had a question about the meal planning, and so I called the 800 number. This guy named Carl on the other end of the phone answered my questions. He said, hey, if you get some good results, would you send them in to us? I was like, sure. So we got results. My wife and I did, Tammy and I, and so we sent them in. They're like, these are great. Would you like to come out to Hawaii to film some infomercial footage?
No.
So we go to Kauai, Hawaii, and that's where we meet Tony Horton, and we meet Carl, the guy on the other end of the phone, the CEO of the company. And as we get to know him and his partner were literally answering phones in their garage with two assistants when they first started doing those infomercials.
Oh, geez.
That's how they got started. That's how I met Carl. It's how we met Tony. And then that just kind of, that expanded into years later. I was a guinea pig for P90X, and that, blew up in a great way. They started the network marketing side of Beachbody. So I'm a founding partner with the company, or was a founding partner with the company with Beachbody. And then that exploded for, I don't know, a good 15 years or so, 20 years with business there. And then that kind of ended abruptly about a year and a half ago. And I think we're going to talk more about that.
Oh, yeah.
Later, so.
Definitely want to talk about that. So you were like one of the first guys in at Beachbody.
Yeah. There were 41 of us that they brought in at the very beginning, because I told Carl no initially. He called me up and said, hey, we want people to start the network marketing side of this that actually got results with the products.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great. but it's not for me. I was pastor at the time. I said, my church trusts me. Network marketing back then kind of had a, smear and a name. It was just kind of,
Right.
So I no. And then he called me a little bit, a couple of weeks later. He said, Doug, seriously, I really want you, just trust me in this. We'll do this right. We'll do this right. I said, it's got to be about relationships and trust, because I'm not going to put my life on the line for this. He said, trust me on this. So we went out to California, 41 of us. There were only really at the time when we built the business, honestly, there were probably 5 or 6 of us that actually built the business hard in the beginning. It wouldn't be around today if it wasn't for the work that we did at the beginning. And then obviously as businesses grow and develop and mature over time, new people come in, they take it to the next level, and then next people come in, take it to the next level. And we just grew to an incredible company. I think with our organization, we had over 30,000 people. We were building it right. We were traveling around the country. I was traveling with Tony Horton, going to QVC and being a testimony person. But then we were also training people, building the business and building relationships. And that's what was important to me, was that we were helping other families develop and earn an income to provide for themselves.
Right.
And that was so gratifying, rather than it just being what we didn't want to be icky. I didn't want to be icky in the network marketing field. I wanted to be something where it was natural. We would build a relationship, but we literally would help people live a life that they didn't think they could live, or maybe earn just a little bit of extra money.
Mm-hmm.
We did that. I'm proud to say we did that.
Well, in the network marketing side of it, it's kind of like buying a franchise.
Yeah.
Even though you're not buying in, you didn't have to buy in other than buy your own stuff.
Right.
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 But when you're in that type of business, like you said, it kind of had that. Amway was out there forever. That's always the big one. We've all been pitched Amway, and I think my brother did Amway for a little while. And
spaghetti dinners.
Oh yeah. And it's kind of odd.
Well, it had an icky part, right? Where you were invited to something you didn't know was going to happen, and all of a sudden, here's a presentation.
Right. Yes.
So full disclosure, I'm a big part. I mean,
You were.
Yeah, I never really built the business, but I was there from pretty much the beginning, watching all this, and it was quite incredible to watch the growth. Always use the products, love the products.
Well, what
miss them.
What made Beachbody, I think, so naturally accessible to people, especially the network marketing side, is we were on infomercials 24/7. So people saw what we were doing on TV. We were in their home already.
Right.
People already knew the product. It wasn't a matter about convincing people that the products were great. People just wanted to be part of what we were doing.
Right.
And that's exciting when you get an opportunity to do that.
Oh yeah. Well, and I remember when I was working here was when you started the company, and I think Jeff Dostal was part of it.
Yeah.
And he had come to me. He's like, you got to do this. And I go, dude, look at me. Do you think anybody is going to buy a health product from me?
Well, he came to me and I joined.
You did.
I did.
That's funny.
Well, they had a product, the shake that you drank in the morning was amazing. And I remember in LA when the gentleman, I think he was called like the hunter of the products, he was really good to go out and get all the product. But it was a really, really good, very good product.
It was good.
I mean, I would have that every morning. It was fantastic.
And that's what
my family did as well.
When you're in business, at least for me, if I'm going to put something forward product wise, I want it to be the best. And we tied ourselves with Beachbody, and we were the best, I thought. In the workout program field, in the supplement field, they were always on the top with good, solid products. And that makes it easy too, as you're building the business. When people really want it, they're looking at it, they're seeing it, people are getting results like, I want that.
Yeah, quality is important.
So,
but people the most. I remember I've been to so many conferences in my business career, right? I mean, in the floral industry and other things, but when I went to the Beachbody ones, one of the things I love the most is that was all about relationships. I mean, there was talk obviously about the workouts and the products and health, but it really was about relationships and building relationships. And isn't that what life is all about at the end of the day?
At the end of the day and in the show, we'll talk about that as we go through the storyline.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that's what's most important. But I think in business, as you're driving to try to build it, sometimes you can lose your identity in the process, and sometimes you can lose that focus, Gary, in the process. And I, there's part of me that did that. And last year I hit a huge wall. But you got to keep what's important at the forefront all the time, which is about relationships and who you're loving.
So when you were starting, because you were so early on, did you get to help shape the company as far as how you guys did your marketing and so forth?
As far as marketing and product development, that was more on the Beachbody side. The networking side, we got to shape that. I was on the board for several years. And so we'd fly out to California, a couple times a year and work through that and develop the company. But we didn't own the company.
Right.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, is that, as a network marketing, you're an independent contractor.
Right.
And you're dependent upon the company. And, we'll talk about how important that is down the road.
Yeah.
So.
And you were, because you were connected with the CEO and with Tony Horton, you could at least pick up the phone and go, okay, this is kind of that icky side of network marketing that we don't want to get into. And I assume they would probably listen.
Yes. And they did. And it was a great process. It was a great learning process as well, to understand, because Carl was one of the top infomercial producers in the country. Worked for Guthrie Ranker early on. He was very successful, so he knew that side of the business.
All right.
He didn't know the networking side. He had no experience in that. Neither did I. Neither did any of us that got started. So we were building it from scratch, and we were fortunate. A little lightning struck, and we hit it. And it worked out really well.
And that's probably a great thing, because a lot of people who get into that type of business, it's set in stone. And there's no changing, and a lot of it probably has that ick factor to it. Well, we have a break coming up here pretty quick, so we're going to run to that. When we come back, I want to talk about the rise of your business and the rise of Beachbody itself. So you're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We're talking with Doug Fitzgerald from it was Fitzgerald Fitness, right?
Correct.
Very good.
Good memory.
And we will have that more on that right after this.
Gary Tharnish.
And we're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Doug Fitzgerald. We're talking about his Beachbody business, which started in 2003. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhere
in there.
Yeah.
It all becomes a blur after a while, doesn't it?
What's funny is you asked me to, you said, we want to talk about the Beachbody business and the lessons that you've learned in that. And I really hadn't thought about this for quite a while, because I have been so removed from it for several years. But the funny thing is, it keeps coming up because it was a big part of my life.
Oh, certainly.
And people knew us around this area and around the country because of that. But some great lessons. I was, grateful to be a part of it. It didn't end the way I wanted it to end, but that's okay. We learned a lot. We were blessed by it. We have great relationships now that we never ever would have had.
Oh yeah,
if it wasn't for that experience.
Incredible human beings.
And it's interesting to have a conversation with somebody who was so early on and so connected, so high up, because it got to be it was a multi-billion-dollar business. And you don't think about it, but then, man, it's in lyrics like Bruno Mars sings about it, and it is all over. It's just kind of one of those like classic staples, if you will, of history and business.
Yeah.
So,
well, P90X was huge in the early.
What's fun? What's funny about P90X?
No,
it tanked. It did not start well. It took them about 18 months for it to take off, because nobody was buying it. They were promoting it. They were infomercialing it, and it just was not flying. And for some reason, I think it's because there were a few people that started using it, got crazy results, and then it just took off like nobody's business. So the company itself almost tanked.
Wow.
That's
before P90X took off. And once P90X took off, if it wouldn't have been for P90X at that point, I don't think the company would have been around, because it really put us on the map.
Sure.
Really did.
And that's interesting, because that's a business lesson of, you always struggle when you have a new product or a new service or something like that. It's like, how long do you stick with it until something,
reminds me of that graphic of the two guys mining for diamonds or whatever, and the one on the bottom gives up, and he's like a foot away from him, and the other one smashes through. And that's what happened. And Carl stuck with it. And the funny thing is, Carl was getting advice. This is a fun part. Carl was getting advice from people saying, back then it was like shorter workouts was kind of the big thing, 30 minutes or less. Well, some of those P90X workouts were an hour and a half long, and they're like, nobody's going to work out for an hour and a half. And so they kept having that in the back of their head, saying, oh, I don't know if this is going to fly. And then finally it did.
Yeah. it
Well,
took off.
I eventually started with 10-minute trainer, I think was the
Yeah.
name of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, got real short after a while.
It did. Trust me, that was part of the marketing process. We went from that to down to 10 minutes and now back up to 30, 45 minutes. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the episode of the 7-minute abs joke? Right. And somebody was in the car and he picked up this hitchhiker just to have somebody to talk to. And he had this brilliant business idea and it was 6-minute abs, you know, and it's like,
We could do it in less time.
that's right. So early on when you started, obviously you didn't just jump into it whole hog. You know, you kept your regular job, which was as a pastor, and just kind of did this on the side. And how long was that time period of keeping this as a side hustle until you realized this is a business?
I had an incredible group of elders at our church. So I was a pastor at Heartland's Church in Lincoln, and incredible group of pastors, elders that really walked alongside me with this. What happened was that early on, we didn't want it to be, we were so removed from it wanting to be icky that we didn't tell anybody at church that we were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lost some weight, got results, things were happening. And all of a sudden we started noticing different people in our church congregation were losing weight and looking, we're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we're doing P90X P90 like you and Tammy are doing. I'm like, no way. Why didn't you tell me this? Trying not for it to be icky.
Right.
And at the time when Carl asked us to come out to California to check out the network marketing side, I went to our elders and I said, here's the deal. If you don't want me to do this, I won't.
Right.
But if you're okay with it, and they're like, well, check it out. If God's got that as part of your journey, go check it out. So it came back. They walked alongside me the whole way. We evaluated, my responsibilities at the church, what I was doing with the business. And it took about 7 months. And, this is kind of like a real rise quick. I mean, it happened really fast. About 7 months into it, we're like, I can't do both anymore. And so they were very gracious to me, finished out my contract at the church, and then we just went full time with Beachbody.
Wow.
Well, and think about how you
about a year
touch people's lives in your church here in Lincoln at Heartlands, right? But then when this exploded, you touch people's lives. I mean, I sat in a conference one time where there must have been 800 of us in a room that you were talking to.
Jeez.
Touched a lot of people's lives because it was more about the relational end of it than it was ever about really the products and pushing it and money and all that. That was part of it, obviously, but it was so you touched a lot more lives through P90X and Beachbody than you probably ever would have at your church. I don't mean that negative. I just mean volume numbers wise.
So 2 things there. Hopefully I can remember both. First one is I'm still meeting people today that would come to our events down here at the Embassy Suites in Lincoln, where we bring Tony Horton in, Sean T. We had, I think our biggest one, we had 12 to 1,500 people at these workouts and trainings and events. And so I'm still meeting people say, hey, I was speaking at an event a couple of weeks ago, and a gal came up to me and said, hey, you don't know me at all, but I was at one of the workouts with Tony Horton. I'm like, that, and this has been years and years later. What was the other thing you had mentioned? Oh, the church.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is when I decided to step back as a pastor and do this full time, we had 2 separate responses from the congregation. One was, why are you stepping away from God? It's kind of that mentality, which we weren't. Another mentality was, oh, you're finally one of us. And which kind of broke my heart a little bit, because I'm thinking that we were, trying to do the best we could in building relationships as a pastor. But I say that because, Gary, when you're saying, you reach more people, I do more ministry and did do more ministry and have done more ministry now, not being a full-time pastor, than when I was a full-time pastor.
Sure.
And I think, there's no criticism in that, other than you're in your own 4 walls at that point. Whereas we expanded around the country, and now all of a sudden you're able to build relationships and get to know people and serve people in that way and be open to say, what can I do to serve you? So, yeah.
And Doug,
it was a great opportunity.
I've known you for a long time. You've always been really good at meeting people where they're at. in a non-judgmental way and walking alongside them, not pushing them or pulling them. And I mean, that's a huge thing for any leader, first off. And I just think, I mean, I've watched you grow all these years. So y'all growed up, Doug. Good job.
I know I'm old. Getting old.
You're old.
Now we're old.
Seasoned.
Seasoned.
That's
thank
the
you.
word we use.
Okay.
Seasoned. I'm very well seasoned. My daughter says I'm way over marinated, but anyway, you know, such is life with kids, correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So then, when you finally stepped away, did you explain to the congregation, "Hey, I'm stepping away. I'm taking into this business," and some of them received it well, and some of them didn't.
And no criticism from him, but it was just it was a different kind of situation that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And so we stepped away. We Tammy and I kind of stepped back a little bit from even what we were doing at church, because we were, even at that point, church, being a pastor at a church is like running a business, and a lot of times pastors at churches burn themselves out. And most people don't even know they're getting burnt out, just like when you're in business. Oh yeah, where you're working hard and people don't know you're getting burnt out. And so, when we stepped back, we did. We took a break and just try to heal a little bit and try to rejuvenate while we were building this business. It was it was kind of like a perfect storm that was happening, and we were very grateful. Like I said, grateful both for Beachbody, grateful for our church, grateful for the leadership at the church to walk alongside us during that process and time, because. If we wouldn't have had that, I trust me, I know I could, there was other churches I could have been at that if they didn't even have known I'd have done this, it wouldn't even have been an option.
Yeah.
And so they were very gracious to me.
Sure.
Yeah. And that could be kind of weird.
Yeah.
So once you stepped away, what made it, you jumped in whole hog, right? And what made this model so successful for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think personally for me, I was constantly involved every single week.
Mm-hmm.
So we did an opportunity presentation every week, and it was all online. And we did a training every week, building our team of people and relationships. And we did that. Even until probably about 5 years ago,
for years and years,
still doing that every single week. But the key to that was relationship, right? When you spend that much time with people and you get to know new people, then you get to know each other and you build relationships in the process. And that to me was the most important thing. When I told Carl I didn't want to do it because I didn't want it to destroy relationships that I had built, I meant it. And so when we poured into it, it was about the relationship. It was about connecting with people and getting to understand people deeper than just what the products provided. And what we did too in our trainings weren't just about how you going to promote the product, how you going to sell the product. The trainings were heavily on personal development, personal growth. Where are you at right now with you and your family? Are you doing the things that are building up your relationships, your marriage, your kids? We held people accountable to that. Mm-hmm. And that takes your relationship to a whole nother level. And when you can tap into that, then you've got some pretty awesome things that are happening in the process.
When you think about a team, any team or a group, or like I'm in a mastermind group now where over time, and especially with consistency, so it's a very regular thing. Everybody buys in, you're there. It's important that you're there. You build up trust where you can talk about the things that aren't here superficial that you're looking at, the deep inside things. Travis, think about us coming back from the conference this last week.
Right.
And the things I was telling you about that I've gone through in my life during business, you were like, I never would have known that, right? Because it's the things inside that are really important. And that type, when you're part of a team that way, it changes everything. So anybody in business, man, if you've got a staff, it's important to have those meaningful relationships. Do things regularly, whether it's a sales meeting or whatever. It makes a difference. Everybody feels involved. They buy into it. They feel a part of it. Mm-hmm. But you build the trust where you can really share deeply. And that's where change happens, in my opinion.
And that goes beyond just consumers. You want to build those relationships with your employees, your managers, absolutely everybody, because it strengthens the team. It strengthens the culture.
Sure.
And overall, it makes you a better business on both sides, from the consumer and the employee side. Well, I hear the music kicking in here. That means we got to run to a break. So you're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Doug Fitzgerald about Fitzgerald Fitness. And when we come back, it's 5 takeaways time, my favorite segment. So that'll be happening right after this.
Filing and Gary Tharnish.
Welcome back to Inside Business. I'm Gary Tharnish, co-host Travis Filing, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Doug Fitzgerald, a good friend of mine I've known for a long time. He's helped me in so many ways, introspectively thinking about life and what's important, which is absolutely wonderful. But we're focusing today on the whole Beachbody revolution that happened in the early 2000s and how that grew for you and everything that happened. And this segment is called our 5 takeaways. We want people to have 5 things they can either put to use in their life right away, things that maybe worked for you, didn't work for you. What's maybe the first one?
All right. Well, thinking about this, the 5 takeaways, right? There's a lot of takeaways that you could pull from.
Sure.
There's a lot of things but let me, as we relate this to Beachbody and that portion of my life and that portion of my business life, first one, and this is going to be a teaser for later because we haven't talked about this yet, but the first one is ownership changes everything. Ownership changes everything. If you're building something and you don't own it, you have to realize that there may be things going on behind the scenes where you have no control. And when that happens, you have to just understand it, be prepared for it. You can do everything right. You can build it, but still, if you don't have control of it, you're exposed in some way.
Did you ever feel like it might happen, have the company going public and everything would go? Did that cross your mind?
All the time.
It did? Okay.
All the time, because we were independent contractors. We knew that at any time, network marketing has a lifespan. I think most businesses in network marketing have a lifespan anywhere between 5 and 7 years. So when you reach that threshold, and we had passed that threshold,
certainly.
I constantly in the back of my mind, it was like, all right, when's it over? When's it over? Right. So in the back, I'm preparing on the back end. So
sure.
Saving, investing, wrote my book, was doing, the show, started doing the syndicated show, radio show, because I was preparing that if that was going to happen, I wanted to be able to do what I was passionate about, number one, which it gave me the opportunity to do, but also to be able to step back and say, you know what, if this does happen, I don't want my identity to be tied to just that.
Yeah, other streams of income.
And I knew a lot of people that, I've known a lot of people and heard stories over the years about network marketing where it really is successful, it implodes, and then people are destroyed. Relationships are destroyed in that. Marriages are destroyed. Finances are destroyed. And so you just have to understand that as you're going into it. If you don't own the whole thing, it doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter if you're in a partnership, because I've been in partnerships before, or if you're, where you're an independent contractor, like in network marketing, if you don't own it, you're not in control.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's very important.
Yeah, certainly.
What's that next piece of advice that you want to hand out?
And we've talked about this more. People matter more than the business.
Yeah.
Period. It doesn't matter where you're at in business. I'm COO at Lincoln Coin and Bullion now. We've been working on bringing on employees and all that. It's still the same, right? It's the people matter the most. You have to get to know the people. Having regular meetings, it's not just about X's and O's and the dollar signs. If you're not sitting down and understanding what is going on in your life, how are you doing? What are the things that stress you out? What are the things you are celebrating in your life? If you don't, those things are going on in the back of your employees' minds anyway. If somebody's in a bad mood, I guarantee it's because something's going on outside of the business, most likely.
Right.
So it's understanding that people matter and just being as a leader, being in tune with that. Mm-hmm. Understanding where people are. When people trust you and you are responsible for people's lives, helping, keeping that focus there really helps you understand, hey, there's more to this than just making the money.
That's a common thread that runs through every guest we have that talks about their business, that at the end of the day, maybe didn't know it when they opened the business, but now they're realizing our people are what matter most. And you have to give them attention and spend time with them. One of the speakers at the conference that we were at was talking about his popcorn company, right? Mm-hmm. And how it has expanded to this huge operation now. But there's, I think he said 30 full-time employees and put out a ton of popcorn internationally almost now. But every Thursday, they all sit together and share a meal. Every Thursday afternoon for lunch, they share a meal. And he said it's incredible. He also said every single day when he comes in, he personally greets and speaks with every employee. How are you doing today? How are things going? He knows everyone. Relationships are vital in everything.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. What's that third piece of advice?
All right. Well, success can quiet the questions you should be asking.
Oh,
that's interesting.
I like that.
When you become successful at something and things are rolling right along, you kind of get blinders on saying, all right, this is the way it's going to be. You should be asking the questions, what's happening. So when Beachbody decided to go public, we talked about this during the break, Gary.
Right.
When they started to go public, I knew at that point, you knew, I knew at that point, things were going to shift in our business, because now all of a sudden it wasn't about Carl leading our organization. It was about shareholders. It was about the board. It was about the numbers, and it was going to change things. See, those are the type of things that you need to be asking. Like when I said, when we were having success and you're saying, all right, were you concerned that it was ever going to go away at some point? Yes. So I was asking questions. What happens if? What happens if? So just be aware of that. Growth is happening, but you got to stop and ask, what if questions.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting about that is that when the focus was on people and relationships, that company exploded. And everybody shared in the wealth of it. And it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. Then it goes public, and all of a sudden it's a board, it's numbers, the people are not thought of, and look where they are today.
Yeah.
Sad, but it's gonna,
and that's probably a great unexpected impact conversation to have after our break. But so let's move on to our fourth piece of advice. What is that fourth piece of advice? Did I jump ahead too early?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Gary looked like he had a question and I cut him off.
My face is, I can't hide anything on my face. Who knows what I was thinking? I don't know. I was actually thinking about lunch. Go ahead, Doug.
I just see we got to talk about relationships, hanging out, lunch. And
I'm a realtor now, so I'm just disclosing everything. No, that was my I'm hungry face.
Got it. Okay.
All right. Number 4, not every season is meant to be recreated. And we haven't talked, we'll talk about this next segment, right? About what happened about a year and a half ago. We tried to recreate the same thing that we had in Beachbody with another company after Beachbody folded, and it didn't work. We thought maybe we could capture lightning in a bottle twice, but it wasn't the same. And so I think a lot of times, no matter what the situation is, doesn't matter if it's in relationships, within marriages, within businesses, whatever, if you have something that's been powerful, that's grown, that's developed, doesn't mean the next, if that goes away, that you can do the same exact thing again. Maybe you can, but the likelihood of it happening the same way, especially like what happened with Beachbody, it could never happen again the way it happened.
Yeah.
You could not recreate what happened.
Sure.
And it wasn't that we were trying to recreate Beachbody, but we were trying to recreate the networking business with some of the things that we had learned principle wise through Beachbody and our experiences with Tony Horton and Tracy Morrow, my dear friend, and another company, and it just didn't go.
Right.
And that's okay. I had to release that about 6 months after we started, and to say, that's okay. It's okay.
And that could be tough. But but the lesson in that is really, all businesses have cycles. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. In your instances, on the grand scheme of things, it's a very short cycle, which is why products changed, but you have to keep not reinventing yourself, but you have to kind of keep of what's coming up next, what can we move, and trying to go back to the way things were. That's always tough.
Even when you talk about products, I didn't even think about this when we were putting this all down, but even when you think about products, I remember with Beachbody and behind the scenes of them constantly creating products. And it always amazed me because they had so many things on the back burner. You can't even create the same type of product success necessarily, most likely. If you have one type of product success and it starts to fade out over time, you can't recreate that same thing. Most likely, you have to come in with something different. Right. And that's interesting.
And something, profoundly different. In my world, in marketing, you think, we remember phone books. Phone books were a thing. When I was living in major cities, we had 4 of them, you know? So they tried to recreate themselves, but they waited too late. But they can't go back. You can't just come back and start printing a phone book again.
Exactly.
Because people are like, what in the heck is this?
Yeah.
Right.
There's a generation that doesn't know what that is, by the way. So,
and we're seeing it happen in TV. We're seeing it happen in radio, newspaper. I heard that Lincoln Journal Star is going to quit printing their newspaper, or maybe they already have.
Really?
And
Physical
just do
copies?
a physical copy.
Wow.
Because it's changing.
Yep.
what am I going to use in my cat litter box? Jeez.
Did your cat really enjoy the news?
Who knows?
Somebody has to, so it may as well be your cat. I
I
don't think the last time I actually physically read a newspaper. It's just, and staying on top of it.
My
tough.
grandmother lived to be 110. And so she lived in the 18th century, 19th, and 20th. And one thing she would say when we would talk to her, and it's all recorded too, which is really, really cool, is she said the pace of things from when I was riding a horse or going by wagon down to Norfolk to play piano for the silent movies to what started happening in the 40s and the 50s. And then all of a sudden in the 60s and the technology, she goes, and the pace of growth and change in her 110 years of life went by so quick and got faster and faster and faster and shorter and shorter. And today we're like, what's good today for marketing can be totally different in 10 days from now almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And your firm, think of what you have to keep track of on that.
Oh.
But the dissemination of information now is crazy fast speed.
And you add AI
that
to
changes
that.
everything too.
Yeah.
AI, right. I saw a politician selling the opposite side of the aisle something the other day, and I was like, and then finally the caption came up that says, see, you have to beware.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm like, wow, somebody switched sides.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. What's that fifth piece of advice?
Well, it's what we've been talking about the whole time. Your identity, as you look at relationships and building things and having success, you culminate that all into one big package, and you realize, number 5, your identity has to be bigger than what you build. And I think losing the business forced me to figure out really who I was without it. Now, as much as I'd like to admit that I didn't put all my identity in Beachbody, I did. It was part of my life, and I had to wear it. I had to do it. I had to live it. And so when it did go away, there is a piece that's just missing. I mean, there's an identity, especially as men. Men, we're designed to create and grow and develop and accumulate and provide. That's kind of how we're built by God. And so you when you pour into something, you do identify with it. I mean, it's who you are. And so when it's gone, you have to make sure that you have a grounding piece of who you truly are. What is your identity outside of the business itself? Also in relationships, you've got to focus on realizing where are your relationships. We'll talk about that in a second too, but because if you're not rooted in who you are, that's based upon your relationships that are around you, and it's just in the business, you're going to crash.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
You're going to crash.
And the other thing for you too is that a lot of us, not me, because I know you personally have lived in Lincoln with you, but around the country, a lot of people do identify you with Beachbody. So you're going through that as well. So it's not only an internal thing, but other people as well. But one thing about you, Tracy, also, that I always admired is that you were always about the people and the relationships. I never felt like it was ever about you. And that's that's something you're gifted with. Love and kindness. That doesn't happen automatically for everyone. So,
well,
hey, you got that going for
that.
you.
Thank you.
Don't forget that.
Thank you.
Just in case you didn't know.
But thank you. But that's right. That's that's where my identity is.
Yep.
Right. It's in knowing who I am with God and my family. And outside of that, whatever provides the income that I need to survive, it's part of that part of that identity process, but it's not my identity.
Right.
If that makes sense.
And we've used this example in the past, but I always think of Junior Seau, who is the linebacker for the San Diego Chargers.
All right.
And a Pro Bowler, Hall of Fame. I mean, it was football his whole life. But then when his career ended, his identity was so cemented into that role that he couldn't handle it and ultimately took his own life.
Yep.
It's like there has to be something more than just your business. Your identity has to be deeper. You have to find joy, and you have to understand that you do have more to offer the world than just Beachbody or football or marketing or real estate or whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. Very important.
Yep.
And I see that you gave us a bonus takeaway here.
I'm going to change the bonus takeaway based
gosh.
upon what we've been talking about. So here's my bonus takeaway.
Okay.
All right. You know, the reality is, if you want to really know who you are, especially as a guy, I'm speaking from a guy's perspective, you want to know who you are, what matters, what's important, you have to get alone. You have to get alone with yourself.
You have to be alone. I'm
you
like,
have to spend
you have to
time.
get alone.
Yes.
Like, for how much?
Yes. Yeah.
I heard
Get
it the
alone.
same way.
You have to
Like,
be alone. Okay.
This is
Be
taking
alone.
a weird twist.
I was
Get
like,
alone.
wow, bad change,
Be,
Doug.
be alone. I didn't even catch that myself. So
It's okay.
but I was at a conference. You talk about conferences, and a lot of times at conferences you try to write down all this stuff, and then you walk away, and about a day or two later you forget it all.
Right.
There was one thing that I remember. I always tell people, go to a conference and just tap into one thing and take that with you. So a guy had read this quote, and it blew my mind at the time. It's my favorite quote that I have. But he read this quote and it hit me so hard. Blaise Pascal, you talk about your grandmother, Gary, about 110 years old. Blaise Pascal lived in the 1600s, mathematician, theologian, genius of a guy. This is his quote: "All men's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone." All men's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone. What did Blaise have to worry about back then? He didn't have a cell phone. Feeding his horse, getting some firewood, whatever. Think about back then. You talk about your grandmother talking about how fast time, activities had sped up and different things of everything.
Technology.
You have to. I've got a room in my house to identify where you are, what's important, to contemplate the decisions in your life, the things that are important. You got to get alone. That's my point, my bonus. You got to get alone with yourself, with your mind, to be able to sit, process, and think. When I go out and speak at different events and conferences and stuff, I ask the question to people, where do you get your best ideas?
Yeah, in the shower.
In the shower
Yeah.
is the top
So
response.
true.
And why is that?
You're alone.
because you're alone.
It's the only place where you're forced to be alone unless you intentionally go to a place to be alone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I built a sauna in my house, and it's that Shannon can't stand it because it's 140 plus degrees in there, and so I go in there by myself.
Yeah.
And you just hit the hot rocks and you just sit, and it's quiet. And my son's like, we need to put speakers in here. We need to hook up a TV or radio. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is utopia, man.
And I was just gonna mention, when you're talking about spending time alone, you don't get to have your phone. That's not alone,
Right.
It just needs to be alone. We just moved into a new house, and on the upper floor we have this beautiful living room space and a fireplace, and they had the bracket on the wall for a TV. And we talked about it, and I said, I don't want to put a TV there. We can have TV in the basement. That's where we go for entertainment. And that has become my space when I get up in the morning, that I can spend a half an hour and go through my morning routine with my mind. And it is life-changing when you really focus specifically on doing that.
Yep.
And there's no one. My cat tries to interrupt me, but that's not that big of a deal. Cat's strange anyway. But I love that one. That might be one of the best takeaways that we've ever had, really.
Yeah, it is.
Regardless of what business you're in or what you're doing, you need that time where you're just alone. And then equally a time with your spouse, if you happen to be married or have that
absolutely.
significant other where you're talking as well.
Yeah.
And for us, not having a TV in a room like that made that space possible.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice. Well, I know we have a break coming up here, so let's run to that really quick. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. You're listening to Inside Business, talking with Doug Fitzgerald, and we're going to have unexpected impact when we get back.
Inside Business with Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish.
And we're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Doug Fitzgerald, and it's time for unexpected impact. I have no idea what your unexpected impact could possibly be.
Let me go. Well, we could be wrong. What is your
we could be wrong.
unexpected impact?
So help me out here. where are we at on this?
So this is where I mean, you were getting ready to walk in. You were doing a drive time Lincoln.
Oh, okay, yeah, with Beachbody. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know if we were where. Okay, I got it. All right. I was thinking about avocado toast for lunch, Gary. That's what I was thinking.
With bacon.
All right.
I haven't got rid of that yet.
All right. So the collapse.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about that. So so we had built the company about a year and a half. Well, it was October, I believe, 2024. I was sitting in this studio at this mic, and the intro music for the Daily Show was starting, and I got a text. And the text was from one of my Beachbody buddies. It said, "What's going on with the company?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "They're shutting down." And I have a guest in the studio.
Oh,
and my heart sinks. And I had no idea. So as the intro music's playing, I'm kind of scrolling on Facebook a little bit. I caught a little glimpse of what was going on. One of the executives said, coaches is what they called us, or affiliates. I'm so sorry that this has happened. And then I had to wait about another hour before I could get informed what was happening.
Oh man,
geez.
that's a long
I'll bet you that was a best of show.
Oh,
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, because it's constantly in the back of your head.
Right.
Yeah, so that was, it hit me hard. Obviously, I didn't know what to think. We were shocked, to say the least. We had no inkling it was going to happen. We had none. We had made cuts about 10 months before that. We had made financial income cuts. So we thought everything was good, probably for the next 2 to 5 years in that area. Mm-hmm. The company had rolled out with that. We had all agreed with it, that everything was going to be fine. And the next thing you know, out of the blue, they're going to dissolve the networking side of the company. So that's what happened. Confused, obviously shocked, the realization of that. And for me, walking away from that, it wasn't, and the income obviously was important. That was our main source of income, right? But it wasn't that hit me right away. What hit me right away was, crap, all these thousands of people have put their trust in me. We had been told for nearly 20 years that this was going to be about the people first and about relationships. And then it happened out of the blue, unexpected, with no warning. People are going to, these were my thoughts, and just be raw with you.
Yeah.
People are going to be disappointed in me. People are going to be upset with me. People are going to be frustrated and mad. And I don't know how to respond to that. And I had no control. Now, was that the case? Well, people were upset, frustrated, and all that. At me, no. I had put that on myself. But that's how I had built the business, is I wanted to build it with integrity, always along the way. And so then you start processing that. I got home, processing it with a good friend, Tracy Morrow, with my wife, figuring out what we're going to do, how we're going to recover from this. What's it going to look like? We hadn't had any word from our CEO at that point, even. I don't think we had heard for another 48 hours or so about the specifics of everything that had gone on and what they were planning on doing.
Which is horrible, because you had a great relationship with Carl to this point. I mean, I think it would change it. So 10 months earlier, when you restructure the income and take a hit, you're thinking this is necessary. And really, they're just... the P&L is what's important for them at that time. Right. I mean, that would be crushing for me. I don't know what your relationship with Carl is at this point, but.
And was it Carl? Was Carl still in his position? Okay, he was still the CEO.
Yeah. They had gone public, was it 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago or so? They had gone public. And as soon as they went public, we had talked about that earlier, that it's not about just what Carl and his team can do as far as control. Although we had investors along the way periodically, from my understanding. Once you put it into a public setting, and now you have investors, you have a board, you've got dividends, shareholders, all this kind of stuff, things are going to change.
Yeah.
Things are going to change.
It's always going to change.
And so that's what we were starting to get a taste of when we had the cut at the beginning of the year. So, but again, it was just that, overnight, you feel like people are going to lose their trust in you.
Yeah.
And that's, that's my deal. I got to deal with that and how I walk through everything. Right. Because I'm very sensitive to that. So
just out of curiosity, just a outsider's perspective, the way that Carl handled this, Good, bad? I mean,
I'm not going to comment.
not going to go down that road.
No,
I get it.
I appreciate the question. I do. And I just don't want to, I want to be able to walk away with, I've already made peace with this. It's taken me quite a while.
Don't need Travis to stir it back up.
I've made peace with it. I'm grateful. And for this time, for the time of my life, Beachbody provided my family great income, great experiences, great opportunities. And I learned a lot through this process, and I could walk away bitter or better. And although I was bitter for a long time, and there still is a part of me that's a little bit bitter, I'm a lot better off for where I am today. And I do thank Carl, because Carl did invite me into this setting. He personally invited me into this, and he didn't need to.
Yeah.
And my life changed. My family's life changed. My family's life will never be the same, because he gave me that invitation.
Sure.
And so I am grateful for that. And how it was handled, that's neither here nor there at this point. It has happened, and there's nothing else we can do. And a lot of things in business too, when things do happen, you just gotta, it's a lot of things out of your control.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep.
And you gotta be able to step back, and how do you process that? I think John Maxwell always says, when you're really disappointed or something really hits you hard, you got to give yourself at least 24 to 48 hours just to get it out. But then you got to come right back and say, all right, let's process this logically. Where do we go from here? But you got to give yourself time to grieve.
Yeah.
And I think that grieving process for me, I did a couple of shows, as a matter of fact. So the daily show that I did and the national show I did, I brought on guests. Tracy Morrow was one of them, Lisa Mosier from Ohio, where we talked about how do you handle deep disappointment, especially in business. And we walked through specific steps of processing that, because Tracy and I were literally processing the disappointment and the frustration at the time we were doing the shows. And I thought, what better time to do it than when you're raw, when you're hurting, and try to do it in a way that's helpful for people to walk through, because we're all gonna experience disappointment in our life. It doesn't matter, what area of your life it is. You're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna get hurt. Things are not gonna go your way, and how you handle them is going to determine where you move on to the future. And if you don't handle them effectively, you can destroy some things in the process. That's why I didn't want to necessarily answer the question, because, it's that's not fair, and that's just my perspective. So.
Amy Burkles is my team lead at
Amy.
Home Design Real Estate Group. Yeah, she's amazing. And I was, after the shop's gone, I'm now a realtor, loving it, but that's totally different part of life. And challenging things are happening, as often do in life, and the fates are after me, doubt, and trying to change my mindset. And I was really down, and we started talking about it. And I've never been one to ask for help. I've mentioned that before, because my father was always, you don't ask for help, you deal with it, you get through it.
Generation.
And so I've learned, I'm learning better. But Amy said something that sticks with me, and I've now said it to so many people I know, and I'll say it to you, and I see that you've done it and you do it, is in any situation that's really difficult or an unexpected impact that's huge, and it changes your entire life in so many ways. It's all the bad is right there, focusing, here it all is. Really always look for the blessing. Yep. There's a blessing in every challenge that you have in life. And that's really changed my life perspective. First off, is to just go, okay, this is tragic, but what's the blessing? It's helped me so much.
Yeah, there's always a blessing.
Yeah.
If you're willing to get alone.
Yeah, and spend time by yourself.
Yeah.
I love that. We're a business show.
Yeah.
So he's like, I loved when you did that. You're like, get alone. And we looked at each other right away like, what the heck? You shouldn't have had a 6 takeaway talk. Go into debt.
Yeah. But did you see some of the handwriting on the wall? Because I just briefly going through doing show prep, I saw 5-6 years prior, the stock was at like $700 a share. And then at the end, it was like 10. So, and now it's like even less than that. So it's like something had to be going bad with the company, not necessarily that the company was being run bad, but maybe it was just kind of petering out. You had to see some of that coming, I would think, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did personally, but that's just my opinion. So, but yeah, I mean, I think there was things where it started to, I don't know if it was necessarily things were really dropping from a financial standpoint, or if stagnation wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
'Cause I think we were making it, from my understanding, from my information, We were making it, but then was that stagnation enough for what the investors and other people wanted? Did they want more? And hey, there's a good payout if you go public too.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, there definitely is. Well, that was Unexpected Impact. So we've got to run to a break here real quick. When we come back, we have This Needs an Adjustment. So Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, we're talking with Doug Fitzgerald, and you're listening to Inside Business. We'll be right back.
Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish.
And we're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Doug Fitzgerald, and it's time for This Needs an Adjustment. And I wanted to talk about your second attempt.
Yeah.
You know, so this was something that you went through, you found out the network marketing side is gone. Let's see if we can capture lightning in a bottle twice.
right. Yeah, that's what when you come out of it, you're like, well, what have I known for the last 20 years to do?
Sure.
We were successful at it, right? We did it. I felt we did it right, and we did it well, and the company did it well and supported us well during that process. And so we're like, all right, what do we do here? Well, Tracy Morrow, again, a friend of ours, had a relationship with a gal who started a network marketing company. It was pretty brand new, a company called Siona. Great products, love them. They do a great job. And she thought, you know what, maybe we could really recreate what we did and pull people, because all these people that were reaching out to us were like, what are we going to do now?
Right.
Can we do something else now? Like looking to you as a leader, which they should. And, where can we go? Can we do this somewhere else? And so we're like, well, and Tracy had this relationship.
Right.
And so she's like, hey, let's see if we can do this. So she was working out a deal, like, yeah, let's bring some people in. So we started building, like right away, started building. And we're thinking, if we can take this to the next level, what if we could get Tony Horton involved? And so we're like, hey, that would be really cool, because
Sure.
Tony was had been creating his Power Nation workout programs with his trainers for a long time. So we tried it. It did not work. It was pretty clear within the first 3 to 4 or 5 months it wasn't going to work. It just wasn't the right mix. It wasn't the right fit. It was different timing, a different market, and it just did not work for us. And so I stepped away from that and just said, you know what? I got to move on.
Yeah.
And so a lot of different changes then from that point on, 2025 till today, a lot of changes happening. So we try to rebuild. I think, like you said, you try to capture that lightning in a bottle twice. We couldn't do it. Is it possible? Yeah, with God's help, it's probably possible. But what else were we going to do?
Yeah.
We didn't know at that point. And maybe we made it, maybe we jumped in too quick too, it was kind of a quick turnaround. And we thought, well, maybe it was a great idea because the opportunity was there. We could have went to another established company. Several other, I believe, affiliates did that, which is great. And we made a decision not to do that. When I say we, Tammy, Tracy, myself made a decision we weren't going to do that with an established company, just because we didn't want to get into that. I won't get into any more of that, but we made a decision not to do that. And so, that's what we decided to do. Second time around didn't work. So it's okay.
And at your height, you had, how many coaches did you guys have?
Oh, 30,000 probably.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I can't remember it specifically in our organization. I know the company itself, man, what were we at?
Hundreds.
100,000, 100 and some thousand, but a lot.
So the people were there. I mean,
yeah.
I totally understand
yeah.
why you're like, okay, hold on. I mean, this just happened. There's a lot of people out there. Now we're all in life rafts. Let's see if we can all tie together and go, because even if half of them signed up or a tenth of them signed up, you've got a big group of people to move forward.
Yeah, it was a quick that first 48 to 72 hours afterwards, after we tied into this other company, we had a lot of people joining.
Yeah.
Because it all goes back to, they trusted us. They trusted us in the process, and they were like, we're going to go with you because we know you, we've experienced what your leadership is like, and we trust you, and we trust Tracy, and we know that if you're going, and this is the whole thing, we know if you're going to do this with this company, then we can trust the process, we can trust the company. And so, it's being a leader is not easy.
No.
It's
No.
it can weigh on you, especially when you
Yeah.
have people, watching you and wanting to be part of what you're doing, and then being very sensitive to wanting to provide for them and serve them in a powerful way. So yeah, it's yeah. So there you
And
go.
I'm going to make the assumption that you really didn't need the second run at this, right? Was it more for the people that were depending on Beachbody? Is that why you created it? Because I'm guessing you were probably in a good spot financially.
Yeah, I think I was in triage. I think,
Shock.
yeah, man, you're making
Lasted
me
a while.
process this live here.
Sorry, Doug.
No, this is great. No, this is great. I think there was, once it happened, it's a what if. It's what if. What's going to happen to our finances? Because it was our main source of income.
Sure.
What's going to happen to our finances? Are we going to be able to keep our home? What happens to these people that we've brought in that trust us in the process? What else am I going to do? And then I'm having you almost having a nervous breakdown at the same time. Because you get anxious and you worry and all this stuff. So now that I'm thinking about it, I was in triage at the time. And so when an opportunity sprung up right away, it's like, well, we can at least pour into that. And it gives us some relief of saying, all right, what ifs? Now we go into, all right, what do we do with this? And can we build this in the meantime while we're trying to figure things out, while we're trying to heal from the triage of everything that's going on. So I think in that moment, yeah, I think we could have walked away.
Yeah.
I'd already prepared myself for doing other things, and I was doing other things. So we could have walked away, but no, yeah, we didn't.
Because I see this almost as we've all had those moments in business where we go, how are we going to make payroll this week?
Yeah.
Right. And this to me is that moment.
Sure.
You have whatever it is who are depending on this paycheck to come in, and it's gone. Did you at least get a little time? Did they just go, hey, Friday's check ain't going to be in the mail?
I will give Carl huge praise on this, because they continued to pay us out at the level they were paying us at the moment they decided to dissolve the company through the end of the year. So that gave us about 1 quarter, about 3 months to make those transitions.
Okay.
And so we're very grateful that
that
the company did that.
Yeah, no
because if it would have been overnight, just totally dropping it, that would have been a huge panic attack for a lot of people. So yeah, that was we're very grateful for that.
That's pretty stand up.
Gave us some time.
Yeah, that's good. Because I think too, I mean, it happens to all of us where you get fired from a job, or, the company goes under and there's absolutely nothing you can do. At least they gave you a little bit of runway. Because I, again, going through prep, I was looking through, I mean, you guys were doing billions of dollars in sales. And then I think last year it was like 250 million. Well, you think as a small business owner, you go, wow, I'd love to drop to only have $250 million in sales. But
right. Exactly.
That's, you have a big scale also, and a bunch of people who are depending on smaller and smaller pieces. So yeah, that's definitely.
And to clarify with that too, is, I know you probably dug into the corporate numbers. I really don't know from the corporate side, the numbers and all that. I only knew from the network marketing side of what we were doing, and had some privy to where the company would stand financially as we moved on, on the board. But from the actual Beachbody business side, and now the public side, I don't know the numbers there.
Well, and it's kind of like being a McDonald's franchisee, so to speak. I know what my franchise is doing, and I know what my employees are depending on. I don't know how well McDonald's is doing to a degree. But yeah. Was Tony involved in it all the way up to the end? And I guess it's still going, so it's not really the end, but is Tony still involved in the company?
I don't.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I think, so
not sure.
I don't know as of today where he's at with all that. So
all right.
Yeah.
Very good. I probably should have thrown that question at you in pre-prep, but every once in a while these questions come up.
Hey,
I'm like, I wonder.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's Tony was a great cornerstone of the company.
Yeah.
And really was foundational part of what we did. I love that guy to death. He's a dear friend. And, there's, even from his standpoint, when I think about it now, from the workout program standpoint, those workouts would have their cycles, right?
Sure.
They'd have their cycles where they were very successful and then they kind of die off. And then maybe it would be Shalene's product and it would kind of die off. And then it would be Sean T's. And I couldn't imagine the roller coaster that he went through, because they were constantly then in the background trying to create new products,
Right,
or improve the current products that they had. And so I know Tony's his system now, Power Nation, which is his own system. Okay, so here's a story about going through. If you don't own it,
Yeah.
right, you're not in control.
right.
So Tony created Power Nation, which is his own workout platform, where he has brought in several cool, awesome trainers. And it's great. So go to Power Nation, check out their workout programs and all that. But that's been his baby the last several years, is him creating that. And I think, it's all part of this whole process of, he owns that.
Yeah.
That's his.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, we've got to go to a break here, but when we come back, what now? That's what we're
Yeah,
going to kind
what's
of
the
come back
future
to.
hold for
Like, what's
Doug?
the future hold? Yeah. So we'll be back after this short break.
And Gary Tharnish.
And we're back for the last segment of Inside Business. It goes so quick.
It does.
It goes so. I wonder
Yeah.
if the station had just let us have all day.
I know. I want to talk to Doug all day.
I know. It's such
Let's
an
go have
easy
lunch.
conversation. Yes.
Avocado toast.
I think I'll pass on the avocado toast.
Right. Most people. will.
It's kind
I
of a
just have
weird
to
one.
love it.
So, what's on the horizon for you? I mean, what's the future hold?
that's a good question. So I was, like I said, I was speaking at an event a couple weeks ago, and it was young parents. Acton Academy, by the way, here in Lincoln, awesome school. Zach
Yeah.
and Heidi Harson have done an amazing job. And so I was did a retreat weekend with the parents, and I had one of the guys ask me one of the evenings, we were bowling. He's like, "How do you do all this stuff?" And I realized at that point that my life is a lot more crazy and different than maybe a lot of people. But if you're an entrepreneur and have an entrepreneur mindset, your mind's constantly going like, what can I do next? And
Yep.
what can I add on to this? And then all of a sudden you have either too many things to do, or you just burn yourself out. So I'll back up. 2025 was, for me and my family and my wife, was one of the absolute best years of our lives and one of the most difficult years of our lives.
Sure.
All in a 12-month window. We gained a new son and a new daughter. So our kids got married this year, which was amazing. And I got to officiate my daughter's wedding. I mean, what's better than that? And at the beginning of the year, obviously the Beachbody income dropped. And then we had a wedding in March. Then I had also, at the beginning of 2025, I had dissolved the daily show here at the radio station here and the nationally syndicated show. So I gave up my radio shows because my life was crazy at the time, and I needed to process everything. That was kind of an outcome, actually, if you think about the Beachbody thing.
Sure.
So we had the weddings. Then I started back up my show in podcast form, and that kind of took off. Then joined a political organization to help with petitions that were running in the state of Nebraska, and that took off. And then we had another wedding in October, and then the gold and silver market took off. So I'm working at Lincoln Coin and Bullion, and it went crazy. Like the gold over doubled, silver over tripled. So
Silver,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
We
my
talked
goodness.
about that, how it just woof.
so we were going, from morning to night. I was just burnt out. So by the time we got to the end of the year, I was literally hit a wall. I'd never hit a wall before, like a physical breakdown wall. And so I hit the wall as my new granddaughter is about to be born mid-January. So we had our first grandbaby in January. So
Isn't it the best?
oh, it is awesome. And that's, I hit the wall, thank goodness, at the end of the year. took a break from about everything except for Lincoln Coin and Bullion, focusing on Laney getting born, and then Laney born in January. At that point in January, I stepped back, got alone with my mind, and said, all right, things have to change, because if they don't change now, I don't know where I'm going to be at, I have a heart attack, I have a nervous breakdown, whatever. So step back and work with my wife, work with, Pat at Lincoln Coin and Bullion, and step back from the political stuff for a while, gave up the radio or the podcast for about 4 months, just to be able to process all that. During that process, I realized, first grandbaby, right? All of a sudden, perspective changes.
Legacy,
it does.
all sorts of things begin to change. Sure.
Once we held that little girl, then you realize what's important.
Yeah, you really do.
And so the things that I was holding on to, maybe for pride, maybe for, want recognition, maybe for the wrong reasons, whatever it is, the show, the politics, the businesses, whatever, realizing that I've only got about 10 good years physically until who knows what's going to happen after 65. And if I don't take advantage of those now, will I regret them? So made some decisions. I'm going to as of this coming week, I'll be just 2 days a week at Lincoln Coin and Bullion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to focus on One Shot, One Life, which is my book, and speaking and emceeing, which is a passion of mine where I get to help people. Got another project working on with the coin, silver, gold, and silver market. And then, so that'll be Monday and Tuesday working on those things. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I get to watch Laney all day long.
There you go.
And so awesome. My wife and I are going to be splitting, helping out with them so they don't have to go through daycare. And, our new daughter, Hannah, is a teacher at LPS. And so, once we get to the summer, kind of reassess everything, kind of see, we also own another business, a spray tanning business and salon in town that my wife runs. And so we're trying to figure out what does that look like. But it's kind of this semi-retirement, from a financial standpoint, according to the world. I want to clarify that. It's not, you talk about retirement during the break. I've got a bazillion things I'd love to do. The question is, which ones do I need to strip out that aren't going to allow me to live the life that is going to give me the most impact and satisfaction with my family and those that I care about first? And so that's kind of where I've been at, where I'm at right now. We'll see what 2026 brings, but I'm excited about it.
And Doug, really, it's just a new season of life. You're in a new season. And in this season, the priorities are different than they have been in the past. I mean, I am going to be 64 in May. And what is important to me now is so different than it was when I was 55, 45, mm-hmm. Obviously, right? Yep. It is how it works. I'm so legacy minded now. Like at work, I love working with the younger people coming into the business that are in their 20s and mentoring them and sharing the knowledge we have. You've always been great at that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you may be a little overly perspective, Doug. Like I get it. You're an emotional guy, but it's like it's brought you to a lot of great places. We're gonna be a great grandfather. So now you really need to start working out, because once that child starts walking, you won't know tired, right, Travis?
Oh man.
Like the kids come over and it's like, ooh, and you can send them home. It was because whoa. I mean, there's a reason we have kids at a young age.
Yes, that's what I thought when you said, oh, I'm gonna watch him Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I thought, wait till there's a couple of them.
Yeah.
Because I watched my grandkids. Now they are 6 months and 2 years old, and watched them for 2 days in a row. And it's like, oh man, God gives you kids when you're young for a reason.
Yeah, but I've read so many articles on grandparenting. The more time you can spend with them, the better that it is. I grew up a block and a half.
I have the opportunity to do this.
Do it.
I have the time. I have the financial backing to do it. I'm doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
And That's say this. Decision. So my mom and dad were, even though they lived in Colorado, they came out a ton to spend time with my kids. And when my son turned 21, now I think back to when I was 21, I go, hey, what do you want to do when you're 21? Well, I'm going to go out with my friends, and we're going to hit the bar, and we're going to this and that. My son goes, you know what? Why don't you, me, and Grandpa go to Vegas, just the three of us, and that's how I want to celebrate my 21st birthday. And it's all because he put in the work, and it's not really work, but he put in the effort to make sure that he was a big part of his life. And now my dad's gone now, but my son has all these incredible memories, because you never know when God's going to call you home.
Absolutely.
So make the effort, and it's so important as we get into this season of life to do it. So,
and how you spend your time is a choice, period.
Yeah,
Always.
it is.
So you've always made really good choices, I think, just so you know.
Well, thank
From
you.
the
I
outside
appreciate
looking in.
that.
Gary approved. Your life is Gary
That
approved.
means so much,
Put a
right?
seal on it right there.
I just want to make sure you feel good, Doug, because
Oh, I
you're a
feel
good
great.
man. So
Dear
No,
diary.
thank you for this time today.
Well,
It's been
yeah.
great.
Well, thank you,
I could
guys.
sit and talk to
Love
you
it.
for
it's
hours and
been a lot of
hours and
fun.
hours. I'd say I'd come over on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, but you're going to be really busy.
Yes, we'll do
So,
it on a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah. Thanks so much for listening to the show.
Yeah, this has been Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. Been talking with Doug Fitzgerald, and we will see you guys next week.